Did you know I now have a Patreon for this channel for people who want to support my work and potentially access, obviously, formerly unavailable perks, such as I'm going to have an AMA. I might actually have a concept where you can select one of the questions that I then make into a whole video. There's going to be a private discussion. There's even the possibility for consulting. Anyway, all of that in the description box below. Don't worry, there is an outro coming soon for everyone who supported me. Now, people might know the obvious movies, if you're talking about like classics, cult classics even. In most cases, yeah, people are sort of aware of what like the movies that maybe are the sleeper good ones that they haven't been to. Like now we got to the point where there'd be enough lists on the internet, enough emphasis, things even become cult classics and in doing so often become overrated. So people are going to know classic movies in general, Goodfellas, Inception, 2001: A Space Odyssey, Lord of the Rings. They're even maybe going to know some of the, what were once upon a time the more niche ones, the Gattacas of the world, the Prestige, some of the ones I like to recommend. So this series, the whole point is to pick out movies that's very unlikely you have seen. Now, obviously, there'll be the person who's the film expert. I've seen, well, it wasn't for you then, and what are you doing on videos like this? Enough said, right? So this is going to be movies where, for my audience, I think you'll be interested in these that go all different directions. Some of it you might not like, you might not be able to handle. Some of it you might find instantly palatable and go, what a classic. How have I never heard of this movie before? And this series, obviously, could run and run and run. I had a big list of these. I thought I'll just do 10 in the first one, see how it goes. So the first movie that we're going to pick out is going to be the movie A Man for All Seasons, which was made in 1966, or at least it was released then. It's by director Fred Zinnemann, an Austrian, and he's a guy who's behind a lot of other movies that possibly you've heard about, probably haven't seen, like Day of the Jackal, the original one, From Here to Eternity, High Noon. These are all big names if you know the history of American film. It comes from a play, which when you watch the movie, you'll absolutely understand why, and you'll understand why a great theatre actor like Paul Scofield would want to be in a movie like this, and you'll realise why he didn't do that many other movies in his career. This is a movie that is mainly talking. It's one of the reasons you probably haven't heard of it, and you probably haven't watched it even if you have. It's got a very slow-moving plot, but that's because it's a movie about ideas. It's about concepts. It's a movie that's about integrity, about the value of your word, about what your principles are, and if someone else can influence you to override them or convince you to turn a blind eye to something and do something you know is wrong, or allow them to without having any judgment, without saying anything, without doing what you could do. This movie is about a concept you'll hear me talk about a lot now, the devil in your ear. The one telling you, what about this? But are you sure about that? Yeah, I mean, you could always do it later, though. But is it really that big a deal? I mean, here's your friend, isn't it? The thing about the devil in your ear is it's not always literally the obvious devil. So, get away from me, devil. No, they can use the people around you. They can use your own feelings, your own ego against you to make you anything it takes to play the... Like a violin. Oh, there we go. We got him going. We got him. It's got exactly what we wanted. In the end, who cares the reason? What about the outcome? The ends justify the means. All that crap. But what I'd say is this, without spoiling the movie, just look in the movie, though, about how even if some people, obviously his actions make them be repelled from him, look how much stronger it makes the love and the devotion of the people closest to him because of who he is, because of what he does. This is a film with an amazing performance by Paul Scofield as Sir Thomas More. It has a pretty good performance by the guy who plays Henry VIII. I would say Orson Welles, he's only in it briefly, but as Cardinal Wolsey, classic Orson Welles performance is one of the reasons I checked out this movie in the first place. And all I'll say without spoiling any of the movie, also features a young John Hurt. All I'll say is this, there's also a great moment and line in it, which once you get to it, you'll know what I mean, where basically the line is, for Wales, and I won't say the rest. Once you see that line, it's just funny, first of all, if you know people from Wales, then secondly, because of the context of how he uses it, it's just an amazing fucking line. Then we have Finding Forrester, a film from 2000 by director Gus Van Sant. It's basically a better version of Good Will Hunting, a movie he made 3 years prior. Now, I will say at the outset, one thing about this movie I'm not as big a fan of is it does lay the racial aspect on pretty thick. Like, it is one of those movies that if you're American or in the Anglosphere you grew up with, that did absolutely skew your perspective on certain races, things like that. There's a lot of social engineering packed in here. But with that said, it is a great inspirational movie about men, about art, about father figures. It's one that's one of the things I think it really nails is the difference between inspiration and plagiarization. It's also a movie, you can see by the poster here, that has Sean Connery in, one of the all-time great actors. And he is epic in this movie. He's really fucking good. He is stern and angry, but at the same time, there's like a gentleness and a vulnerability there. Oh, what a fucking masterclass performance by this guy. Also features another great performance by F. Murray Abraham as kind of an asshole character. One of the all-time great character actors in American cinema. I think it has, without spoiling in any way, this won't give anything away, one of the most perfect endings to a film you will ever see. That doesn't mean you'll like it, but I think it's one that you cannot top if you try to come up with different angles and different ways it could have ended. I think this is basically, he nailed it completely on this one. Then we have Primer from 2004 by director Shane Carruth. Another, by the way, a guy where this was another cult classic movie. Now loads of people will have at least heard of it and be suggested it. Back when I used to recommend it to people, no one had ever heard of it. I was always the first person telling people to check it out. And they always came back like, what the hell? That's insane. How have I never heard of this movie? So what I will say is this director, I very much anticipated when he would make another film. He did make another film. I thought it was absolute shit. So we won't go into that. This is a film, though, where I'll say I won't even mention anything about the budget or how it was made, because that actually might spoil it or change your expectations. This is the ultimate example of a movie where I don't even like this newer poster. I prefer the very plain poster, because you don't want to go in knowing anything about the movie. It's going to be way better if you've heard nothing. I'd even suggest if you're going to watch it, skip this part or pause this part, go watch the movie and come back. Why even risk any elements being given away? Because everything I say now will potentially taint your expectations. Like, basically, this is the best time travel movie ever. This is truly great sci-fi, science fiction. It's about the mind. It's not about special effects. It's not about, whoa, can you believe that? It's more about, whoa, think of the premise of what that would mean and the implications, though, and fuck, shit, what was going on there? Like, I hadn't even considered that when I first heard them talking that way. It's one of those movies where you realize that special effects actually make your mind worse. They give you what to think and to see. This is a movie that's about how special effects rob the imaginative power of the mind. It's not like the theme, but that's one of the highlights of watching this movie. It'll make you realize, wait, yeah, you don't need any of those things. Actually, they get in the way sometimes. It is, as a result, this is how it gets away without having the special effects. It is a fantastically scripted movie. In fact, it's overly complex in a way that's very satisfying. And I will say, practically everyone who's ever watched it, me included, you will need, after you enjoy watching it the first time, to go and look up like a timeline of what was going on and what time and who was who, and then later go and rewatch the movie again, maybe a year later, and you will actually maybe get even more out of it, and you'll realize what a gem it actually is. Just one of those ones where now, for people who have seen it, it's probably very highly rated, but it's an underrated classic in terms of way too few people have still seen it, especially in a genre like this, where you'd think they've seen every movie and they've watched all the stupid avatars and all that crap. They haven't seen a movie like Primer. It's wild. Then we have Ashes of Time, Redux version. Now, the original was made in 1994. This is the 2008 re-edit. This was by director Wong Kar-wai, one of my absolute favourites. It's rarely cited, though, among his best movies. In fact, some people even think it's not that good or it's overrated. It is one of my absolute favourite movies, but it's one of my absolute favourite, if not the best, by Wong Kar-wai. The cinematography, which as usual is with the usual partner in crime, Christopher Doyle, is unbelievable in this movie. There are some scenes that are just art, moving art, that will be imprinted on my soul forever. There's a certain scene around a lake with a sword, the scenes of cherry blossoms in bloom. It's just intoxicating imagery. Like what Christopher Doyle can do with the camera and film is, it beggars belief. He's unbelievable. One of the all-time great cinematographers. Now, it is, in terms of plot, some simple wuxia stories. Anime fans should love them, right? Where there's the usual mix of like weird morals, almost like parable elements there. But there are also some pretty out there conceptions and magical thinking that you'd hope would go with a story like this. Strange abilities, personas. I'm trying not to give too much away here, obviously. The central story, which plays out mainly towards the end and is hinted at before, is haunting. It's one of these movies where I don't watch it that often because you have to really get into it. It's very intentionally intense emotionally. I would also say the soundtrack is incredible. Like, just look up the love theme. That is one of the most haunting pieces of music, especially when you know the context, you will ever hear in film. This is a movie that I will never forget as long as I live. Then we have 2001's Waking Life by director Richard Linklater, who you might know from many other movies, the Midnight Trilogy, Dazed and Confused, the classic, School of Rock, a bit more pleb, but still a fun movie, A Scanner Darkly, which obviously used similar rotoscoping technology, Boyhood was one that came out recently, the one no one's ever seen, that again I think it's based on like a play or something, is Tape. There's a banger for you right there. So this is another cult classic. Some people will have heard of it, some people have never heard of it. The people who've never heard of it, you are in for a treat. You won't even believe what this movie's like, and like the fact that you've never heard for it. This is still, in my opinion, an underexposed movie in terms of the film audience. It takes its cues quite clearly. It's like a sort of spiritual sequel to the movie Slacker, which also was a talking movie, which is what this primarily is. It's all about characters that come in and go out of the movie. It's rotoscoped, so it's got this beautiful art, and it uses a lot of different art styles and themes within the movie. I'd actually say, by the way, if you want another great rotoscoped art movie, the movie Loving Vincent is right up the alley of this type of movie lover. It's weird, it's funny, it's unexpected, it's deep, it's about dreams. And so I won't tell you any more than that. You got to see this one. Then we have 1998's Dark City, specifically the director's cut. This one is by director Alex Proyas, who made The Crow, I, Robot, Knowing. He also made some bollocks movies after that. I get the sense he's a pretty compromised figure, actually, maybe in light of what he was revealing in this movie. Make sure you get the director's cut, because they absolutely butchered the theatrical release. And this is just one of those movies where everything about the director's cut is better. If you don't know, I've recommended this previously on other shows, this was a precursor to The Matrix, a movie which copied and syncretized a lot of other sources, but it just did it really well. Like The Matrix is probably a better plotted movie and film in general, but this is a way better concept and story, and it is incredible sci-fi. Like this is one where it's a bit like the Truman Show in the sense that you watch it, you think, what a crazy premise. Wow, how out there can you imagine? It's like, no, you can't. And actually, the fact that it's out there is why your mind just goes, it's a fun film, isn't it? But it's one where the more breadcrumbs you pick up and rabbit holes you go down, when you come back to this movie, actually, the weird, or like, what was it? That must have been artistic dream logic. When all that stuff starts to become more and more and more profound and poignant and vital and becomes very compelling and revelatory. We'll just say that, shall we? I think the ending is a great white pill. This is also what a great ending to the way the movie was going. You, again, won't say how it happens, but I think that's actually, if you understand the premise that's being talked about and what it might mean for the world and life, I think this is the ending that nails it. We have 1949's The Fountainhead, director King Vidor. I'll admit, it's the only movie I've ever seen by King Vidor, because I didn't watch it because of King Vidor. Great name though, King Vidor. Just said it again. Now, this is from an Ayn Rand novel, so immediately, we've touched the electric fence. Now everyone must tell us all the things that they know about Ayn Rand without ever reading her books, or because they've politically been told what to think, or idiots on Twitter. I don't care about any of that. One of the things about Ayn Rand is I love her work personally. I think this is a great piece of fiction as well, but I get that some people can't get past the length of it or the writing style. I don't need to get past either. I'm cool with them both. Like I like all those aspects, but the key thing about Ayn Rand is she's a philosophical writer. She's someone who's writing to explain her worldview through the characters, through the plot, and try and show you how it plays out so you can sort of see in your mind, like, oh, right, I see what they're doing there. That's one of the reasons I think her work is so absurdly tainted by criticism and people being conditioned before they ever crack the book open and being told who they think she is and what she might have done. They don't just read the book. They don't just like let the ideas come in and then see what it's actually worth. So I think this is a great movie, one of the best, about the spirit of the individual, about never giving up, about the idea that people will even try and convince you to give up, about what it means to be free in your soul, not in terms of external validation. All I'll say is there's a great scene in this movie. It's one of the ones that will stick with you for a long time, where it's basically about the idea that you can't beat him. It's a speech about that. This is a movie where the triumph of the movie absolutely does hit an insane high note at the end of the movie, but in a way where, again, no spoilers. You will just remember the end of this movie and how they draw together every feeling and sentiment in the film to end on a certain shot. Gary Cooper, classic film actor from the US, has a great performance in this one, very well cast. It's actually a very well cast movie in general, even though Because obviously some of the characters, we're talking 1949 here, guys, some of the characters aren't like amazing actors or like super duper roles. And some of them can be a bit wooden. But even then, they cast the right person for that and they do a great job delivering that character's element and pushing the plot forward. 2007's Before the Devil Knows You're Dead. By the way, I've intentionally picked this older poster because the newer ones, I've noticed this trend in newer movie posters, they give away too many details or show you like scenes that would change what you're thinking when you watch early on in the movie. You can't see anything from this. You don't know what this movie's about here. It's from a famous Irish saying, apparently. Now, this is from director Sidney Lumet. I believe that's how you say his name. Mega underrated director. How this guy isn't just held, and I don't care what film nerds say, in the whole movie world, in the ranks of the Scorseses and the Kubricks, I don't know, because this guy, the amount of work he put in and how many good movies. This is the guy who made The Verdict, Dog Day Afternoon, Network, The Pawnbroker, 12 Angry Men. They're just the highlights, guys. You can go 10, 15 movies more deep in this guy's back catalogue. He's unreal. And this is a movie where if you enjoy the work of Philip Seymour Hoffman, this is him at his finest. This is one of his best performances before his death. By the way, it's a good all-around performance from the cast in general. Albert Finney does what Albert Finney does. Ethan Hawke's pretty good. It is a brutal morality play. That's all I'll say. A brutal one. But it is so compelling. Can you turn away? Can you stop? Even when you get a sense of what might be happening, I don't know that you can actually. I think this should basically be considered a psychological horror movie. And in saying that, I might have said too much. So again, buyer beware. I would always suggest on these sorts of videos, you go watch the movie first. Then we have 2000's Men of Honor director George Tillum Jr. I've seen like Notorious that he made as well, but it doesn't seem like he's a great director. This just seems like it must have been a banger script and it got the right actors involved. It's a movie about what is honor, about why would you never give up? What would drive you or compel you not to give up? It's about getting up when you fall in every sense. You'll never know it, but this is a movie about my life. I won't tell you how. It's none of your fucking business. I'm not here to sell you my life and my memories and my dreams. No, I'm here to do certain work that I might present to you, but it's none of your fucking business. My tragedies, my fucking battles, my plights aren't for you. I'm not going to sell them out for cheap little nickels. But this is a movie where I just fuck with it super heavy. It's done so well, even though you're going to think some of these things are cliche. Cliches are whack because whack people use them and mediocre minds repeat them and run them into the ground. When someone great expresses a similar idea along similar lines, but they nail it and it means something, all of a sudden it means so much more. Put it this way, if in your life you've never had the experience of someone telling you I love you and having it really mean something, then it is just a trite thing that anyone can say and people say all the time until that person says it to you and you look in their eyes and they mean it and you feel that connection. Then all of a sudden that becomes the most powerful 3-word sentence that you can ever say, right? So similarly, this movie nails so many themes that you might have seen in other movies that have tried to do it, but never as well as this. Cuba Gooding Jr. is always a top actor when he has the parts, when he has the right director. Robert De Niro, this is one of his last truly classic performances. Remember, it's from 2000s. He was becoming a sellout little bitch already. He's perfectly cast in this movie. And by the way, I hope, and this is a really sort of interesting way to frame this, but I'm going to say it this way. I hope this kind of a movie helps you understand how absurdly intolerant the woke are. Because this is a movie that might open your eyes if you're willing to actually not be bigoted and think about it as to how ignorant you and others out there can be with their moral high ground, their perceptions of what makes a good person and what doesn't, and how you can just judge a book by its cover instantly in all regards and write people off. The role of Robert De Niro in this one is very key in that respect. And all I'll say is this. There's a video associated with it, but I wouldn't watch it until you watch the movie. And I wouldn't say the sentence. The sentence itself is an emotional punch to the gut. I'll just say the acronym ASNF. If you know it, then you know it. The last one is going to be 2006, The Fountain by director Darren Aronofsky, who might be known for movies like Requiem for a Dream, Pi, Black Swan. Those were his highlights. This is his best movie, in my opinion. This is his best film. Everyone else, or a lot of other people, would disagree, but there are certain sort of niche group of people who think this is a phenomenal movie like me, and if you like it, it's going to be maybe your favourite movie, or it's going to be right up there. I think it is criminally underviewed, it is criminally underrated, it is so often dismissed in silly fashion by people who don't seem to have the mental stamina to watch it, don't seem to make any attempt to understand it, and it was also very, very poorly marketed, and it even only received, I think, a limited release in the UK. I remember thinking, what the fuck? I think this movie is amazing. It is a phenomenal piece of art about myth, art, magical thinking, love, loss, what it means to be human, what it means to be present in each other's lives. It has an incredible emotional arc that does go up and down and throughout all different dimensions and concepts and mythological archetypes. And it's crescendo, there's a bunch of them. It's so well done. The soundtrack, the Clint Mansell soundtrack, is fucking nuts. It's really good. Hugh Jackman does a great job in the central role. I never thought Hugh Jackman was like a great actor. He could be very good. But man, he nailed 2 movies in this year. It was the same year he did The Prestige. Like, what a fucking beast he was in these movies. The all-around cast's very well set up. I think they all do their job pretty well. This is a movie, again, it might be your favourite movie if you watch it and it kind of vibes with you. Now, I'll do more in this series in the future, but there's 10 to get you started.